we're having. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Board of Elections.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Now they're both working.
Good deal.
Sigh.
Okay, I think I'm in one place now. The first on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Apologize for the delay. Any motions to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda,
Excellent.
if that's what you
Second.
asked. We're having trouble hearing you.
Seconds?
Second.
Okay. Oh, this is fun. Now I can't hear anybody.
We can sort
I'm
of hear you.
doomed. Okay, so let's take a look at the discussion items. The first is to review the 2025 election and how it went.
We had a couple of topics that we could start with, or I wasn't
I'm gonna
sure.
leave and come back because I can't hear anyone. So we'll give it a
Oh,
third
no.
try.
I know it's hard when there's other things going on.
Yep.
I was saying we had the same situation on Monday.
On Monday at the
Right.
meeting?
Yeah, we had one council member trying to join and he couldn't connect to the audio. So I'm not sure if there's something like maybe there's an update that's needed or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I probably see that like 2 or 3 times a day in Zoom calls, but I'm also on about a dozen Zoom calls a day, so
Ugh.
Sarah's still connecting. There you are. You're muted.
You're muted.
I feel like my grandma trying to get everybody to take a picture.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Hi, I'm back. I'm for real this time.
Excellent.
Okay, so we're here to talk about the 2025 first thing on the election is on the agenda is the 2025 election and how it worked and what we liked and what we can improve. And I don't remember if I think there was an order on the agenda, but I'm not recalling what the specifics were.
So the first item was just generally the preparation process. So all the kind of lead up to election day. So those would be like the preparation of the materials, the printing of the ballots, things of that nature. I was just putting together some of the minutes, and I did recall both Kate and Sarah saying that they felt more prepared this year earlier. So I didn't know if that was shared by the rest of the board or how you felt about the preparations leading up to Election Day.
I mean, I felt largely like the preparations went smoothly. I think the only thing that we felt, at least I felt we were a little crunched on, was the community involvement for the sticker contest, and like otherwise, I felt like all of the preparation was solid.
Certainly felt less running around. But after you do it a few years, then it starts to feel a little bit more like, oh, I know how this is going. People who are more new to our particular process, like Jahira or Andy, no one here, or Terry, anybody who hasn't done it like 5 to 10 times, like Sheila and I and Kate. Is there anything that you think we could have improved in the prep to you as judges or as Board of Elections to prepare you for that day? And in the process coming up to it?
No, I thought it was well done, especially like the training beforehand. I felt everything was in hand. So.
Okay. Since we've had a couple people say that, I think if Kate, if you don't have any comments, then we can go to the next item.
The next item was our vendor Electech. And the reason this was a separate item is there were I think some concerns in 2023 just about like the ballot preparation and things like that, like the way the ballots came to us, whether they were shrink wrapped or not. I didn't see the ballots being open, so I don't know. Were they shrink wrapped this time?
Yeah, they
Okay.
were shrink wrapped, and they were shrink wrapped by Ward.
Oh, good.
That was good. And the person they sent to work with us that day was attentive and followed our rules, which was nice. Because sometimes they kind of sit there and don't follow the rules, even though they should be, because they're in a polling place. So that was good.
Did you notice any issues with, I know that there were some spoiled ballots, like did people have difficulty using the scanner or the equipment that we had or anything like that?
I think it was user error, and it wasn't consistent user error, if I'm remembering correctly.
The only thing I remember was that the ballots were different this year than last year, so that we didn't have that numbering thing where we could check to see which ballots, the numbering system was different.
Yeah.
And I remember being a little concerned because we didn't have that tear off piece that we also used as a reference at the end of the day to check against.
Yeah.
But we didn't seem to need it, so. And they were numbered. It wasn't, it was just not easily readable to the layperson. The machine had no problem.
Got it. I didn't realize that. That's a good catch though, Sheila, because we did have those. I think you guys kept the little tabs at the bottom, if I remember correctly. So that's interesting. I didn't even realize that. Okay.
Yeah. I will say also on the subject of Electech, it seemed like the machine accepted ballots no matter which way they were put in, but we discovered that if they were put in upside down, they may have scanned in if they were not filled in correctly. So if the bubble wasn't filled in and they were like check marked, it would accept instead of reject if they put it in upside down. So I think that's eek.
We'll need to talk to them about that.
So just capturing that. So the machine would accept the ballots. It wouldn't reject them if they were put in upside down and not marked properly, right?
Yes. Yeah. So if this is the front of the ballot and it wasn't marked properly, if it was put in this way, then it rejected it, but if it was put in this way, then it accepted it.
Interesting. Hmm. Okay, that's definitely something that needs to be addressed.
Either the instructions need to change or they need to improve the scanner one way or the other. Just for posterity, people are gonna potentially be popping in and out as the storm moves through our neighborhood and people's power comes in and out. That's one of the reasons I was late. Our power went off and everything had to restart.
Yeah, ours, our backup battery just kicked in. So,
Oh, gosh.
Okay. So any other comments about Electech, the equipment, the service, the staffing, anything?
I mean, the service and staffing were great.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I will
Personable and ready.
service and staffing. Okay. I will add just one thing, just in case, just for the record. We did have an issue with the final balance of the final invoice. There was an issue with the they had an Excel spreadsheet, and I guess the formula had gotten mixed up, and so the final balance was actually a bit more than what we had planned on. They were willing there, they kind of cut it in half so that we didn't have as much of an impact. And then they also offered to print the ward, if we had to have a Ward 5 special election, that they would print the ballots for us for free. So I just wanted to make sure we remembered that and we
Yeah.
put it in the record. We'll just pay, just be really careful with the invoice next year.
Okay, yeah, next.
Next was voter outreach. And so Sheila and Andy, as residents, I think that would also be did you see the materials that came out in the crier or electronically? Did you know an election was happening? That's always questions we get.
I knew an election was happening. I mean, there were signs in town, various places up by Town Center Market. I mean, of course, by the town hall, but I thought, and in the crier, there were emails that came from the town through that, through that. I mean, my concern is always with the electronic stuff that we have people in the town that may or may not have access to computers and may not get emails. But we also receive things in the mail. So that's I think it's important to make sure we don't lose that. That we mail things out to people so that, and not say, oh, they'll see it on the,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Do we do any outreach, like SMS, any kind of texting or anything to phones at all?
We did not. We don't
Mhm.
have that capability yet. But I think that's something that will happen with actually it's a module I've seen in some websites where people can sign up for different types of alerts.
Mhm.
But there's other tools we can use. But let me add that on our list here just for next year.
It seems like something that would be useful for, especially the communities we're trying to reach, which are younger audiences and
Mhm.
and immigrants, that they're going to be doing most of the stuff on their phone.
Did everyone
Voter
get their
outreach is a continual issue, and we have very, very thankful for the town staff for doing a lot of outreach, and we need to find ways to help encourage the town citizens to encourage other town citizens. Is it, bring a friend to vote and you get a extra sticker, or some kind, we need to, think about ways to get people to come and to potentially reach out to other people in the community to encourage them to vote.
Yeah.
So can we get people from the community to volunteer to door knock? That'd be kind of interesting to do, to reach out, a couple months before the next election and try to find people who will
work in the community. I mean, I've done that as a volunteer for specific candidates, but maybe we as a Board of Elections can say, hey, it's nonpartisan effort to get people to vote. I don't know.
Did you receive your voter card, if you will, from the Board of Elections in a reasonable
Yes.
amount of time?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
that was
Yeah.
indeed good. So that's County Board of Elections.
Yep.
Let me add that.
I thought that the fact that we had so many people for early voting indicated really good voter outreach.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so.
Yep.
For the first year to have that many people show up on a Sunday.
That and the success of the whole day was very nice.
Yeah.
I liked the training in the morning and the stuff in the afternoon too. That worked really well.
Yeah, that was great.
And then hopefully next election we'll have the second ballot box. East
Or
of
a
the river.
second candidate,
A first candidate.
a first candidate. Yeah. Extras all around.
Yes.
Let me add that because we do have the new ballot box. We have a
Yeah.
second one. It's here. So
We just need to get it installed by next May of, 18 months from now.
is it too presumptuous to say that in case there's a special election in between now and then? But let's plan for 2027 for that
Yeah,
one.
I think so.
It'll
Oh.
be here in a minute and a half,
Yeah.
no matter what we do.
Heather has her hand up.
Yay. Oh, Heather.
Hey, sorry to be late and to not be on camera. I was just driving home, which was not safe and would not recommend right now.
Yes.
And now I'm snuggling with my dogs who are terrified of storms. So apologies for not being on camera. But I had a couple of questions. Yeah, you're okay, buddy. I meant to look at past elections to see what the vote total was, and also what the ward by ward total was. Has anyone, Jessica, have you done that, or has anyone else already done that? Do we know whether more people turned out? Do we know how that broke down by ward?
Yeah, I haven't done that yet. We'd have to open the materials. I think we were just so focused on the Ward 5 special, but we will need to come together and like unpack the materials. I usually like to have somebody else with me if we're going to unpack them and put them away. So yeah, that's Heather, I'm going to put that down under our voter data collection and analysis. So we need to do that.
Okay, yeah, in terms of what worked and what didn't, it's hard to know that without knowing whether more people voted or different people voted or.
Well, we know less people voted.
Yeah, fewer people voted, but I also think that, it's tough to just compare straight up year over year without taking into consideration contested elections and, the council turnover, new mayor, like all of that has to be factored into any comparisons.
And the general state of the world.
Yeah, that too.
Sure, and also those numbers are important, right? We want more people to vote. So
Yes.
at the end of the day, I do want to know whether more people voted or what, like more people voted from wards that have been, less active in the past or
Yep.
whatever. So
We
I'm
could
happy
also
to-
reach out to Hyattsville and Mount Rainier and stuff who had elections around the same time to see what their voter turnout was like, to see if it was, if ours was comparable, the number and the reduction was comparable.
Okay.
Or not.
While we're on this topic, because I added it specifically, we did have a request from one of our board members, one of our 16-year-old board members that used to serve, who's no longer obviously aged out of the 16, 17-year-old board positions. And so he was asking for some more very specific like voter information, like who's coming back. We don't have that. We don't have data that is like, I mean, the county board will have some of those things, and after they process all the municipal elections, but we don't really analyze that afterwards. And I think what Heather's saying is correct, that there should be some sort of, however we determine that to, to happen, but we should take the time to like compile and analyze as we become more and more professional. That component is just still missing. And the data collection, like knowing on the front end what data we want to collect, even if it doesn't, we might be able to add it in different ways or collect it in different ways. So maybe that's a discussion point when we get further along before the next election, like how we can do better with that. Because that still is like the way that even the supplemental voter registry, that didn't come into play this year, but there's no way to really track who's coming back. And so I think that's important information, especially related to our supplemental voter registry. So the way we have it set up now is just like a simple Excel spreadsheet. And I remember Pat Doyen saying she would help us like put something else together, but we need to figure out number one, how to do it, and number two, whose responsibility that would be. Like, I don't know that staff should necessarily do that. Maybe that's something the board can compile like a day or two or a week or two after the election.
How do we keep track of who voted if we're trying to keep this all anonymous as well? Like, I mean, I don't know.
People who check in.
Okay.
Yeah, your
Yeah.
voter card
Yeah.
has certain information on it.
Okay.
And so what happens after the election is that I prepare or we pull all the voter cards that go to the county. And what the county does is really register the voter activity. And that's why we have to pull out the supplemental. So it's interesting because when we present the results of the election to the mayor and council, the vote counts, it's going to look different on the county level because they take out any of our supplementals. And so, yeah, just that we're still relatively new at this and just wanting to bring up that, we did have a resident that asked for more specific data. I did send him to the county board of elections. I don't think he got the answer he wanted. So maybe just something we could talk about in the future.
Yeah, we should absolutely be able to do that. It's not that many people so far. And
Oh, I think we just ask
Yeah.
AI.
right, I think, no, but I think that there are ways to do it, and we should. He's right. He's right. We
Yeah.
should be able to provide that information. So that's good to add that to the preparation process, is to get ready for how to do that.
So
And it
could we
has-
consider,
yeah.
Jessica, if the county is compiling that, could they share that back with us to give us a head start, and then we could add in the supplemental? Because even though it's it's not a lot of people, it's still, if we're doing it manually, error prone and would take time. So if we could get a head start by getting it from the county.
I don't see why not. Just in when they give us like, I just recently requested the registered voters for wards 5 and 6. And the thought there, I'd have to see, but it's just an Excel spreadsheet that they will upload to us. So I think we could probably do that. And then just deciding, how we want to present that to the community. Maybe that's something that the board, still being new, maybe after the election, that's something the board can present to the council. This year it was a little crazy because we had the Ward 5 special election. But it still can be done, certainly. But maybe scheduling that out in our process so that we can see if our efforts are improving, and it might support other things the board wants to do in the future.
Is there any way we can get the historical data, like beyond just this election from the county?
Oh, from the county, probably. I don't know how far, I'm sure they have it. I'm just not
Yeah.
sure how far they go back. They
It'd
have
be
a lot
nice.
of information.
Yeah, it might be nice. We can see and see if we can find any patterns.
I had one other thing I was thinking about. So one of the things that I was really excited about in the like last summer and into the fall was we were talking really early about voter outreach. And I thought that we had some good ideas about how to get beyond, the folks who always know about elections and doing some more creative outreach. I don't think much of that happened. At least looking at the spreadsheet that I put together, I did what I was able to do, which was a bulk of, I think, what happened.
Right.
Um, and so I'm wondering, and I'm not saying that to like to take credit or to cast blame. I'm saying that because I thought that we had some really good ideas, and then I think very few of them happened. And I'm curious whether there were blocks to that, or like things that I just honestly don't remember, whether there were things that came up that prevented us from doing it. I feel like at some points we were missing information, and then we didn't have the information until late. But I want to make sure that next time around we get at that stuff early, so that the good ideas that we had actually materialize and we have that information. So I know we were like making a bunch of changes that we had to get approved, and we were changing the dates and doing stuff earlier, and it was a little bit of a moving target. But I honestly just don't remember whether there were structural barriers to not doing some of that outreach, or if we just need to like have some folks who are solely focused on voter outreach and aren't actually on the Board of Elections who can carry some of that weight while we're, meeting, every other week leading up to the election.
And if I could share, Heather, if I could remind, just the timeline was also very difficult. So we had the election happening at the federal level, and so there was a concern about information going out and being confusing, which we did see examples of how that crossover impacted things. I mean, there were ballots dropped in our box that weren't ours, that kind of thing. We had that. We had the timeline with the implementation and effectiveness of the charter and code changes. And then we had just simply not enough hands to do it. It really does a lot of times fall on staff. And we just don't have enough. There were like a lot of really great ideas and a lot we need to do. Perhaps in the future, having town hall open, maybe creating like office hours for the board where you could come in and do certain things and utilize like the copiers and things like that you'll need the supplies. Maybe that would help. I don't know, like there's a lot of grassroots. I know for regular town stuff, the most effective method is in talking with people, knocking on doors, like handing out flyers, answering questions. But I also had and Sarah can speak to this too. When we went to the farmers market, no one wanted to speak to us. And for me, that was heartbreaking because that's not usually the reception I ever have gotten at the
They were
market.
rude.
I
People were
was
rude to
Really?
us.
shocked.
Yeah.
Well, a
And
lot of
I
them weren't Riverdale voters, right? I
It-
mean, they
it's
were
still,
people and they
like-
wanted to know why you were bothering them when they were
Yes.
here to buy vegetables,
I changed my thing. I said, are you, do you live in the area?
right?
And then if they lived in Hyattsville, I told them the election was next week or in Mount Rainier and and tried to do voter education that way. And that's one of the things that I think makes sense to do for our next round of elections.
Yep.
Is to reach out to the other jurisdictions in the area and create a team of somebody from Mount Rainier, somebody from Hyattsville, somebody from Riverdale, somebody from each of these, Brentwood, whatever's around that same time. And we go to events. So they can be in Hyattsville, they can be in Riverdale, they can be in Mount Rainier, wherever they are. And we have one person from each of those jurisdictions to talk to the people who are there. And I think we would get a more positive thing. And we would, the other thing that felt really, would make any kind of in-person event, voter education better is just a big banner that says, elections coming up, more information here. And, it doesn't really even need to be, have a date or anything like that, but it just needs to be something that, so people understand why you're there. You're not there to collect signatures or take opinions or whatever.
Right.
And even just having a sign that says when the election is would be, I think, useful. And so Heather, I did, Jessica and I did 2 or 3 outreach at different events, and we even had Jessica even had Chris, who was a Spanish speaker, come to the farmers market. And what we figured out
is that if we're gonna have a Spanish peeker at the farmer's market, it's best to have them right there right at 3. Because people are on their way back from school. And they stop and they go home, and then the traffic goes way, way down. So, that was a lesson learned. And yeah, and it was surprising how I think another thing, Heather, is just we are all burnt out.
Mhm.
We were all just disheartened by what was going on everywhere, and so we were less enthusiastic and more nervous about ourselves getting out there. We're putting ourselves at risk every time we as election officials encourage people to vote in some ways. So, there's that to it as well. But I do think, I had said, Heather, I don't know if you were here, that I think it would be neat if we could get like an election corps, like they do with, the AmeriCorps or the Peace Corps or whatever, of volunteers who will say, okay, one Saturday, go knock on doors and deliver information about the elections. And I think we could get people to do 3 hours on a Saturday if we provide them with the materials and say, hey, we're just asking people to go door to door to let people know there's election coming up. And we could disperse the legwork out, and we could become the people who come up with the plan. At least I think, like, I know people who would be able to sign up for 3 hours on a Saturday to do that.
Yeah, I think it is hard to be the people coming up with the plan and the people executing the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yes, I think it's good to get more people involved. And also, it doesn't sound like we were seeing a whole lot of people who wanted to get involved.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, it's a little bit of a catch-22. I want to make sure we're not setting ourselves up for, unrealistic expectations either.
That's why I said like 3 hours. It's like getting, the things we see in the stuff for, we're going to get rid of invasive vines or go pick up trash or, something like that. I think we could get people who are interested in supporting a free and fair elections for 3 hours once every 2 years.
Just on
hope
the
so.
very low level, we can have like a tablecloth made that has like Board of Elections on it. Like we can have like a banner done. We can do that now
Yeah. Okay.
for next year. So that will help us be more visible, I think, in the community.
And then maybe we can do a little bit of analysis and think about what are the big events that draw actually Riverdale Park people to them, and make sure we're there, that are, I bet Jessica knows. Okay, so do we, everybody feel like we kind of talked about, how we need to be more structured in, our voter outreach, and we need to bring in more people. That's kind of the takeaway. Does that sound right to everybody?
I think you're right. I think that the volunteer component is the one that's missing, and it,
Yeah.
Heather can't do it all
No.
and should not.
Yes.
So it's stepping up has to happen everywhere.
Yep.
Do we do the outreach to the high school?
We had thought about it, but it's difficult because they go to different people in Riverdale, go to different high schools.
True.
I would like to try to definitely in the next year, Jessica, is try to reach out to the guidance counselors and the student governments at all the local high schools, and see if they would like to get involved. We can even have them as people who would, might be people who would like to knock on doors and talk about voter education and get their community service hours.
We did compile that information this year and talk to the different schools, and they were excited. The interesting thing is the students don't always know what ward they're in or whether they're in Riverdale Park or not, and a lot of the adults still don't know either, especially on the border of town. So, but that's an education piece that we can work on. Leading up to this, there's several things that we could probably go into the schools. Of course, we have to go through a process for that, but the student government, those kids are already excited about government and elections and things like that. So even on a larger scale, we would like to reach out for this vacancy that we still have on the Board of Elections for a 16 and 17-year-old. I think we are missing out on the youth, our young voters. And we need to focus on that. So there's a lot of things we need to do. Kate, when you were talking about volunteers, we have this issue townwide
With
getting
everything.
volunteers.
I
Yeah,
know. It's really hard because
is.
it's a lot of work and people already have a million other things going on. And
Yeah.
people who like to do stuff are already doing stuff.
Doing stuff. Yep. We
But
have to
I'm-
find those, break big projects down into bite-sized pieces that we
Right.
can, like the 3 hours one Saturday, you know? And then I think, you know,
Right. And educating the educators in this
Yep.
case is going to be important.
yep.
I made a note of that, so that's on our list now to do.
Hello, Cat.
It's nice to see the kitty. The next
Okay.
item on the list was the early voting logistics. I think Terry spoke to Terry or Andy maybe have spoke to the turnout was really phenomenal. Really, really good.
Yep.
That was exciting.
I don't think there was anything bad about that day at all. It
No,
was,
it wasn't early voting, it was regular voting.
was
real
wonderful.
voting.
Yep.
It was
Yep,
actual voting,
yep,
and that was a good thing.
yep.
Do you think it's the day of the week? What do you
Yes.
think it is? You think it's Sunday? Okay.
Yep.
Because all your chores, you've done your weekend chores
Right.
for the most part, so Sunday is kind of a, it's a quieter time. To try to do it on a Saturday, I think is, you're gonna run into trouble.
There
Yeah.
were people showing up before the polls actually opened though, so we might want to
Yeah.
think about making the early voting day a
Earlier,
little bit
yep.
longer.
Hmm.
Open it like an hour earlier. I don't even remember. But I think that might make sense.
Mhm.
I think it's the first time I've ever seen like voters waiting to get in. That was
I know,
really
that was really
Mm.
thrilling, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right. And the logistics went pretty well. We were already set up. We had done the training in the morning, then we had lunch, and then everybody was ready to rock and roll. And we had people there right away. Was there any issue with closing down early voting? Was there any like logistics things that we need to consider closing down early voting and then going into like election day the next day? I think there was such a short window of time. We had the locking box and we had the little zip bags. So we had some additional security components. Was
Yeah.
there anything that you thought was missing in that transition time?
I didn't have anything about that in my notes.
I don't, yeah,
I
I think,
thought that went pretty well,
Yeah.
actually. The fact that we could lock it all up and, lots of stuff into the rolling part and then lock it into, I didn't have any complaints written down
Yep.
about that.
You don't have the complaint that you didn't have the key to the conference room because I was sitting on 495.
Oh, I
and
forgot about that. Well, that was so what?
got us in, we got in. It was
Stuff
no,
happens.
I did get another copy. So these things. I did get another copy of the key which will go on your key ring.
Okay.
So when you leave, you have all of that.
Oh,
All of
good.
those keys. Live and
Yeah.
learn, right? Live and learn.
Right. And if that was, be real, that was not the worst thing that could happen in the whole
Yeah.
wide world.
That is true.
And it was so easily managed that I forgot about it. So,
See, Heather was saying she couldn't remember the beginning part. We can't remember just a few months ago. What?
Right.
May?
Right.
Oh, not feels like forever ago.
it does.
Okay, so early voting went great. We had good turnout. Election day logistics, like starting the day, it was a really slow
yeah.
voter turnout day. Did you notice anything? So we had a little area for same day voter registration and it wasn't used a whole lot. Did that, like the layout work well in that new space?
I
Yeah.
really liked having that separate space because otherwise you see, for me, my ADHD kind of kicks in sometimes and it allows me to and the work and focus with another person. and go at a reasonable pace. And I don't feel like I'm hurrying to try to get to another person. So even if we had a line of 10 people, it's much more like we bring one in and we deal with them. I think we can leave everything spread out, and I think it worked really, really well.
That was actually a running theme in the notes that I jotted down,
Mhm.
was that it is difficult to remind yourself that you have enough time to do whatever it is that you need to do, and then it's going to be okay, and nothing needs to rush, but you need to finish, and you need to finish it well.
Yep.
And what that, had we had the number of new voters this time that we had last time, that room would have been ideal because it
Yes.
was quiet and those people were not in the middle of everything moving around. They would have been to the side.
to the
It's better
side.
for the judges, it's way better for the voters. It feels a lot less harried, I think. One thing that I did note about election day logistics, which I just remembered on somewhere in my notes, is that we might want to consider having counter height check-in. At least one counter height check-in area, maybe all of them, or maybe all of them and a regular low table. Because it is so much easier for people to write things down, fill things out, sign things if they're writing at the right height. And so without having everybody sit down on the other side of the table, maybe it would be okay to raise us up, and we can either stand or sit, we can figure something out. But for the voters, I think it might be more comfortable. What do you think?
As long as we also make sure we have accessible stuff for people.
Oh,
who
yeah,
want-
yeah, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't, I'm not suggesting that we would not have
Yeah.
ADA compliant voter check-in, but also compliant for people who are standing.
Yeah.
I wonder, Kate, if we could just, I'm thinking about the booths that we use. I wonder if there's just something that sits on top of the table that people could write on. So we could move
Yeah,
it
there
if
may be.
somebody else
Yeah.
needed it.
Right.
Let me put that down. There's a lot of voter supply companies we can look at. So, okay.
It's almost like an office supply too. Anytime you would have, like at a bank, they have the more like, at different levels.
Right. And that, that's in a lot of places in the world.
Yeah. I think the Spanish language stuff worked fine.
Well, we had
Um,
one, that poor woman got to
She was-
translate one time,
Yes,
but when she did, I was really glad she was there.
yes. And it was a person who had registered for the first time that day,
Yeah.
and they
that
had
was
never
good.
voted before. So,
It was great.
yeah. Um, I think the day itself seemed to go fine. I liked the rotation, people coming and going and doing the different roles, so we all didn't get bored, and we also got to stand in different sit sometimes, stand sometimes, whatever. And then there were people who didn't want to move and they didn't need to, and that was fine as well. So I think all of that worked well. The food was great, as always. The snack space was good. We all felt taken care of. Thank you, Jessica. Office supplies out the wazoo. So all of that, I don't think we were in need of anything. The great instructions that Kate has diligently put together, I think those served us well. The only other thing about election day logistics is the end of the day, and I think we need to be more metered and more thoughtful about Board of Elections training about what the end of the day looks like and what everybody's going to do, and we need to have it more written down, because I think that was one of the things that lacked. It was all stuck in our head to what needs to happen, how it happens, and how long it's going to take. because we all want to leave. And then I know that when I feel like, oh, everybody wants to leave, then I start to try to work faster and then I make more mistakes and da, 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 da. So if we can, I think, write down specifically what we need to do at the end of the day, and try to create more specific roles so that everybody can do a job and we can, I think that'll get us out faster and be less stressful. Um, uh, but I didn't know if anybody had any more specific instructions on how to make the end of the day when we're all exhausted better.
No, I think that's a great idea, Sarah, because we have like you said, the instructions that Kate has set up for like setup
Yeah.
are very, very detailed. Having that same level of detail for teardown.
Yeah.
Would be really helpful.
And I think it's up to Kate and I to let people know it could take a while depending on what stuff looks like. So just plan on an hour and a half, and if it takes 45 minutes, yay. But don't plan on 45 minutes.
Something I had also been thinking about was, so traditionally there's always been the mayor and council meeting afterwards. And I think that's what people are used to. But I'm not sure it has to be that way. So it would be something we can talk about in the future, but it is very difficult, like just from a staff perspective. I'm preparing for a council meeting,
Right.
and then we're trying to, support the board doing what they need to do.
Yep.
And so, if I don't know how the council would feel about that, but, the charter was changed when we started the supplemental voter registry to say that the election results, will not always be available. The final results won't always be available on the night of. There may be some unofficial results. And so what I was thinking is that we run the risk of, in the future, if our elections are much bigger, that there won't be official election results on that night for the mayor and council to take action on. So does it make sense to consider doing it the next night, and then committing to additional wrap up or whatever might need to be done the next? I don't know what other boards do, but it just started to think, you as election judges work from 5:30 that morning until the closing of the polls, which is 8. And then the amount of time you need doesn't need to be as stressful. So it could be an hour, it could be an hour and a half, it could be 2 hours if we have a more complicated election. And then what's the difference between unofficial results and official results? So I don't know, there are just some things that I think we might want to look at in maybe having the mayor and council meeting the next day. Will the public, can they wait for the official stamping of the results in the future? Is there a possibility that we will have unofficial results versus official results? I'm not really sure. If you have, what would keep us working? Maybe if we had people who came in and voted, I can't think of the word at the moment, I just lost it, that we might need to verify
Provisional.
information.
If we have
Provisional.
provisional ballots, if we get a write-in candidate who hasn't gone through the process of getting approved, all of those things could easily make it be an unofficial. I am 150% in support of making it the next day, especially if we give it a next day, we can actually potentially do some of the statistical stuff that Heather was talking about. So we can say, hey, this number of percentage of people voted versus last time, and et cetera, et cetera. We can take a look and give a more, it can be more about elections and less about results. So I am a big time in thinking it would be nice to do it the next day. Because I certainly won't be as punchy, and Kate will appreciate the fact that I'll be a serious person.
Well, I think we all need to be serious.
Yes, I know.
Is there a provision in something? Do I recall reading something? Maybe I'm wrong. That we have that available to
Yeah.
us, right?
Yeah, I don't think we have to do
So-
it that night. I think it's
Yeah.
that we do it that night because it's kind of, it's
Well,
always.
it's
been
the way
done.
we've always done it, so, yeah,
I think we can tell them that we are going, based on the sanity of us and the potential idiosync, say the word for me, Kate.
we're looking for idiosyncrasies here.
Thank you.
I would say we don't even need to give that complicated of an answer. I think what we would say is,
Yeah,
we will, if we have solid preliminary results, they will be announced.
yeah,
And then the council, the mayor and council can act on those results at a meeting the next day.
yeah,
What do
that's
you
true.
think?
We can post it on the website.
Right, as unofficial results, and we'll just wait for the Associated Press to call it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Speak
I
for
think, you
people.
know, that's one thing that we have to think about too. I'm using the royal we, the board
Mhm.
needs to think about
Mhm.
is that elections will become more complicated in the future when we have more people. That's a goal, when
Right.
more people are involved in it. And so
Right.
the more that we can think of now and learn now, the better
Right.
off I think you'll be. And so those who designed the charter change to allow for expanded voting did allow for like, I think it was like 3 to 5 days for the
Yeah.
results. So I think that was based on, I think what Hyattsville had done. And so as we grow, that might be something that needs to be considered. So change is hard. Doesn't mean, you know, those kinds of things are visible change. And so we can talk a little bit more about that, but I wanted to get it into the notes if it was something that you were interested
Yeah.
in possibly doing. On
One,
from
one thing I forgot to talk about for
Mhm.
election day is the election from the curb, voting from the curb.
Oh,
That might be
yeah.
something we want to look at. That can help disabled people, people who
Right.
have mobility issues,
Yeah.
vote who can't make it in. And I know that they did that at other jurisdictions. And we may just do it, you know, maybe it's something that we offer on early, you know, or the early elections. We have voting from the curb if you need it, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, if we can do Crescent Cities, we can do that.
Yeah,
I had a couple of other, I'm looking at my notes. I have a
Yep.
lot of notes, which I'm not gonna, nobody wants to sit through this. But I had another logistic thing that I forgot about. Across the street where the candidates camp out, we need to move them down so that the people who, in the event that we have a lot of people who want to park, they can park directly across the street and walk in. The way the candidates hang out,
they
It
park their cars, their
needs-
own cars right there too.
yeah,
Yeah.
that impedes progress to the door for everybody. And if they are a little bit more down out of the line of sight, we won't be so likely to go out and chat.
And they aren't going to
So-
be as likely to come in.
And they won't be as likely to come in. So I think that if we just, nothing against them, we love them all. But move them down the street a little bit.
We can't legally do that, but we can certainly say, hey, it's
No, we can
impeding
block the
people's.
parking though.
Yeah,
We can
that's
make
exactly.
that
We could
voter
say
parking
it's,
only.
yes, votee and parking only. Only people who are voting can park
Right,
here. And it
right.
would be easier if you guys, you know, were a little bit. But of course, they want to be able to talk to the voters, so it gets
Sure.
very,
Right, I know, I know.
Yeah, I mean, we can make a reasonable suggestion though, and
Sure.
back it up with like, hey, you want people to vote? We want people to
Yes.
vote. It's
Yeah,
Here for them to vote
Right.
if you're not sitting in
Right.
apartment spaces.
yes,
right, yeah, when they pulled out their camp chairs.
yes.
So yeah, that was something I think we talked about too, was we had the nifty signs that said voter parking. So maybe order a couple more of those for next
Yeah, put 'em
year or
across
next
the
Yep.
street.
round.
Put them
Yeah,
across on the other
Yeah.
side of the
Yeah.
street.
right.
Yeah, I'm gonna just make a note of
Yep.
that. Okay, Kate, did you have other ones?
What about parking? A lot of these were notes for me about what, I have a whole bunch, I have lists of things that should be in the packets for election judges that weren't. um, a list of things that should be on the tally sheets, a better tally sheet.
Oh, the end of the day, the tally sheet, we need to come up with a
We
tally
need
sheet
a much better, we need a much
for-
better approach for that.
internally, so because we don't have a way to, it's very difficult when they're writing candidates to try to keep
Right,
track of who
well,
they
I
are.
have, we need to add to the tally sheet before and after for mail-in and Crescent Cities accounts.
Yep,
We need to add space for write-in votes. We need to add space for spoiled ballots, disqualified ballots, all that kind of data stuff. We need to be
Yep.
able to do that. And ideally, what the tally sheet becomes is the foundation for the statistical analysis. But
Yep.
I gotta figure that out. Somebody has to,
I-
actually, I don't have to figure that out.
no, you don't.
Somebody else could figure that out. Raise your hand if you're interested, because that's a job that we need to do.
I think it would be useful to just do a Google search and see what other jurisdictions have for tally sheets.
Did I hear you volunteer for that, Ms. Zoll?
I can do that if you'd like me to. I don't care. I am very competent with Google.
Good. Good, but it was that kind of thing, and then I made lists of the stuff that we should take to Crescent Cities. I
Yes.
think it would also be good if other of the judges or members of the board who are interested in volunteering to help with that,
Yes.
it would be great. If
It's a lot of
Sarah
work.
and Sarah or I could
Yeah.
go and do that with somebody else, but it came at a horrendous time in my life to do that. And I did it anyway, and that's life, and I'm not gonna complain about it. But it would be nice if we have other people who are interested. It's not a terrible thing to do. They were happy enough to see us. We had more voters from Crescent Cities than we had from Ward 5.
Yeah.
So,
By a long shot.
yeah. And so that's a good thing to do. And I've got lists of things that about outreach to them, and we did okay with that. Jessica did great with that. We need to make it earlier and more solid and more intentional, and so that it doesn't feel like when we walk in there, we need to look like we know what we're doing. And that's
I
all
pulled
possible.
up, I just did a Google search for voter tally sheet, and one of the first ones that comes up is for University Park.
Huh. Well, good for them.
Yeah. And it's a good start. Well,
But
they've got a
anyway,
lot of
so
data
that's that.
scientists over there, so.
Can we talk just 1 second about the number of election judges? So we had, and I'm actually still working on those minutes where we're having that discussion.
Mhm.
This year we had one alternate that covered for Kate, or for Heather rather, because we knew Heather early on was not going to be there. And then we had one election judge we weren't sure of whether they were going to actually come, so we went ahead and brought on the additional election judge, the other alternate. But again, in a different world, when this might look different and there may be more voters, logistically, there may need to be more election judges to deal with chain of custody related to
Right.
ballots.
Right.
So if if the board is thinking of doing, like, for example, motor voter, there will have to be some considerations with chain of custody with the ballots. We have the tools now to do it. It's just the bodies in place to be able to do those things. So
Yep.
I hear what Kate is saying about structure related to Crescent Cities, and that makes good sense. Adding other election judges to that, if we know sooner when that might happen, that would be helpful, because everybody's schedules, it was very last minute. And that was really because we didn't have good communication with Crescent Cities, but we'll fix that piece. But as we're adding different types of voting and different activities, we want to be mindful of the number that we might need. So I think we need to amend its charter or code where it says shall have certain
Mhm.
number of judges, and maybe
Yeah.
have a recommendation to the council on how many we need, and maybe
Yeah.
do that earlier, establish the judges earlier. And
The
they
other-
could be helping you with all the steps along the way.
the other thing for me was is that we can also take a look at when the work of is at the day and like shift change stuff where if we're going to do if we have a peak of voters coming in, do we have 6 hours in the morning and 6 hours at the night with election judges and an hour where they're overlapped where we do mail-in ballots or whatever, that kind of thing. And then people have days that are more reasonable in length. And but I think it might be interesting to see. Because I know we're all just punchy by the end of the day.
Okay.
Sheila, you're muted. Oops.
I have a question about, I know you all went up to Crescent Cities, and I think that's great. But I was wondering about how that works out that you do that, and can something similar be done with Ward 5? Like that's a vote place. I don't know, and I know nothing about.
Yeah, why don't we
the
think of that?
law, But
But then it
Okay.
becomes for me, the issue with going to Crescent City is those voters cannot come to the place of election.
Yeah,
They are physically not able.
sure, right,
And Ward 5, they aren't coming, but it isn't because they're not physically able. I had thought about what other places we could try to that are similar to Crescent City. Are there other group homes in the area? Are there, places where there could be potentially voters who can't physically make it to our polls? And what numbers of people would need to live in that space that would make the use of the time useful? It's also that there's a fair number of people in Crescent Cities. So, I mean, it's not as much as in the apartment complexes. If we were going to do that, it might be that we could use the explanation that the density of the voters in that area, the potential voters in that area, would make us have a day of early early voting happens in Ward 5. That we don't, something like that.
and then anyone who votes could come to vote there.
Yeah.
Another thought might be to have a separate polling site in wards 5 and 6.
Yeah,
I mean, we've never done that before. Doesn't mean it can't be done. Other jurisdictions do it all the time, but I hear what Sheila's saying.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge. I mean, the next thing on the agenda is talking about, the continued vacancy in Ward 5. So I made notes of that. Let's talk about that a little bit more. I don't know how that works,
Yeah.
but it would be an additional polling place. We'd have to determine it a year in advance because we have to report it to the county. And then
Is there a place that even makes sense that we could do it physically?
There's a church over there that might let us.
Okay.
there is a church, and
There's a couple of churches.
there's several, right? And then let's explore that. Let's explore what the possibility is for that. I'm also very curious to see, Heather's got me thinking about these voting trends in our wards that we have the most difficulty getting voters out. So let's look at that. We know what it is this year for Ward 5, but
Yeah.
because again, I'm thinking, we're asking a population, especially right now, who is fearful of what's happening, to come over to the police station.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Sheila, that's an excellent point. The other thing I'll share, I did have a conversation with a candidate, and they were lamenting about the difficulty of getting voters to the polling place, just in general. And the conversations that they had had with with their voters, their neighbors, right? And how to have those conversations actually translate into people coming to the polls. So that's an interesting thought. Potentially having a second polling place. Let's talk about it. Or even an early voting site. That's another option.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put that's in our notes so we could talk about that more. So exciting thinking of all these energizing voters. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see, what else do we have on our list? I think we talked about the last thing was the voter data collection and analysis, and I think we talked about a variety of ways. Sarah, the one thing that Sarah brought up that I want to add to our notes is talking about, I think it was Sarah, the different the workload, if you will. So how many voters are we getting by noon? How many, like dividing the day up and like tracking our voting by that time frame. So I think that's interesting and would be helpful for us for staffing purposes.
Yeah.
Anything else that we can add to our list anywhere related to the election?
Yura, when you joined the board, you were super excited to do voter outreach, and then we never got to motivate you into getting you active. Is there any kind of secret plan you had that we weren't able to enact? Any ways you think we could that you can think of?
Not off the top. I mean, I'm tracking all the things that you said. I think the comment that Heather made earlier resonated, and I think it's just a matter of time. It's getting started earlier, having a clearer plan, having more people involved, sharing the load. All those things feel right to me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
I'm here. I'm listening.
Yep.
No,
And then
that
I
really
think-
wasn't the point. I know, I can tell you paying attention. I spoke to my mom through the back of a newspaper for a good 60 years. Okay, I think we're done with the review of the town elections. Does that sound good to everybody? Yeah, okay. There's one thing I want to make sure that, one of the things I've always enjoyed about working on the Board of Elections is that there's generally a diverse group of people. And I want to make sure that we continue to have a diverse group of people on the Board of Elections. It always has surprised me. I'm just like, oh, look at this is where all the old ladies volunteer, is where whenever I would go to vote. And I want to, and so it would be nice to try to figure out how we can get literally diverse not being a code word for not white people, meaning a group of people at the election site that reflect the population of this town, and at different ages and ethnicities and genders and all of that there. We all learn more, and it's also encourages people to vote if they see themselves working at the elections. So
I agree.
the last is the vacancy in Ward 5 and the next steps.
Yep. So just a quick report. We had a mayor and council meeting on Monday night. Sarah was there. We presented just generally the same cover memo that everybody got to see, and then the memo from the board just saying, of course, we did not receive any packets from Ward 5. Very interesting discussion in general. So just to recap, we are now in a phase, an appointment phase. The mayor has until July the 24th to make an appointment from Ward 5 with, of course, confirmation of majority of the council. And then after additional notice in a paper of general circulation, they can move to an appointment from the town at large. Some of the discussion Monday night was really interesting and definitely made you think a little bit more. We had one councilman ask, well, can there be one councilman representing 2 wards? Can't, but that was an interesting concept there. And that maybe even goes a little further to some things that Kate has talked about as it goes to ward numbers and things like that. So that was interesting. I think that Sarah made a plea to really try very hard to find somebody in Ward 5. There may have been just some slight confusion about, we did have one person who appeared to be interested in being a candidate. They did correspond with me several times, but they did not put in a packet that's never appeared or anything. literally tore the building apart looking for everything. It never came. There was more than just that, though. It wasn't just that they didn't submit. If they had submitted a packet, there was no record of them being registered to vote in the town. We also, just because I can't let anything lie, like I did call the Board of Elections and I was like, you know, what if we like change the spelling, and what if there was a typo somewhere? So we really exhausted. There was no one by that name registered in Prince George's County, period. With different combinations statewide, there were a few. But even as of yesterday, I got a new list for the mayor to utilize. That name still isn't on there. So that hurdle of being a registered voter in the town would have still existed. So that was the only other thing. Although what Sarah said was about the signatures, that did prompt more discussion from the council about the number of registered voters we have in Ward 5, which is approximately 180. So the ward size itself, we just did the redistricting, is about the same as every other ward in town, but there's only approximately 180 registered voters on the county registry. So we do have maybe like 30 to 40 on the supplemental. So that's a challenge. I mean, it is a challenge for sure. The mayor had talked about some different ways that he might do some outreach, or everybody was encouraged to be part of finding somebody. That was the message I thought I heard from the council, just really dedicated to finding somebody to serve. So that's where we are right now. We're in the appointment phase. There was something in the crier already, talking about the cancellation of the special election. I did approve a really lovely flyer that staff put together. So, you know, our boring, like black and white font thing, I mean, I love the old stuff, but I don't think it always catches everybody's eye. So we have something lovely that will be put up in all the buildings in Ward 5, which is two buildings, two multifamily buildings. It'll go on the signboards. It'll go also on our communication platform. So the constant contact email database continues to grow. So as you come to like town events, your email address is saved in there. And so you can always opt out, but we're continuing to grow that. We have all of the residents who participated, for example, in our Farmers Market Dollar program. So that is actually a good tool. So that'll be that'll be the lead story, I think, this week. And just continuing to let people know, number one, that the special election is canceled, because we did do a pretty extensive outreach on the front end. And then just letting people know we're in that phase now, the appointment phase. So, we tried really, really hard to get somebody.
How the number of the number of registered voters and the difficulty in getting signatures came up, somebody asked why we didn't think anybody was able to register. Did the board have a reason was there anything that we thought made it more difficult for people to run in Ward 5? And I said, there's just less registered voters. And that was something that the current council members really hadn't thought about. And so I wanted them to think about that. It isn't that people aren't interested in running from Ward 5, it's just more difficult based on the logistics of finding 150 out of how many thousand people, who are going to be home at the time that you have off of work to get a signature. And how many of those, and that population tends to be more transient. They're coming in and out more. How many of them are still there? And so it becomes more and more difficult. And so that I know, Kate and I have been talking about why and the notion that anybody who lives in Riverdale Park for 45 days can be a registered voter. Why do they need to be a current registered voter if all it takes is them registering to vote? Is it just, is being in Riverdale Park 45 days enough to be a person that says, yes, I agree that this person can be a candidate? So there's other ways to look at it. The other thing I thought about was a percentage. So that instead of a flat number of 15 signatures, it's you need to get, if somebody has, if there are 400 registered voters, then they need to get 20, and they need to get 5%. And if there's 100 registered voters, they need to get 5%. That kind of levels the playing field too. But I
Well,
do,
I'm with you, but I
Yeah.
think, well, everybody knows
Yeah.
what I think about this, so I
yeah,
won't
you
say
think
it.
he should
Okay.
just, anybody should be able to run, you don't need to have, you
Absolutely.
don't have to have signatures. And I think it would be really good if we figured out what other jurisdictions do.
Yep.
That might be our big lift in the next 2 years, Kate, if we want to move the needle.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many jurisdictions continue to do the petition process?
Yeah.
How many? And I think what Sarah is saying, like the way the charter and code are written, it says qualified voter, and frankly, you can be a qualified voter by you can be qualified to vote in the town by registering on the same day of the election. So.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a consideration. So I'm not really sure. I don't know what other jurisdictions do, but
Yeah.
I think we have some really good connections to other jurisdictions in the area. And that's
Yep.
always a way to like gauge when, change, right? Like if other people are doing it and it works, then let's see where we go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really important to look at the number of registered voters in each ward, and maybe that's something we look at just in general. It's a huge difference. You can look at the boxes, right? Like the number of voter cards we have. Like Ward 1, we have multiple
Right.
boxes, and Ward 2 we have a little bit less, and then Ward 3 we have a little bit less, and then Ward 4 is pretty steady, but 5 and 6 drop off so drastically. And so, that's a challenge. I mean, it makes it harder for potential candidates in those wards to ballot or to get their signatures for the petition. Also, please note, it makes it very difficult for those wards to force things to referendum, because that's also tied to registered voters. And so just in thinking about that, not just about the election, but other components of like town governance in general, it's a bigger conversation, I think.
Yeah.
And so very important conversation. And maybe this summer we can look at doing some of the basic research now.
Did everybody see Andy's message? There's a rainbow.
Oh, good. It's on the other side of the house.
Yeah.
I'm looking like I'm in Riverdale Park, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, yes. But yes,
You've got to go take a look.
yes, check it out. I can see like light coming through. So yeah, I think there's a lot of discussion points, like hurdles to candidacy, perhaps. The other thing that became like really glaringly, and I know Heather's going to be like nodding to this one, the instructions for candidates. When we were looking at the Ward 5 special election in the candidate packet, it wasn't as clear. We know what the process looks like, and all the incumbents know what the process looks like. But then I started questioning our level of detail in the instructions for other folks. And so we talked about doing an FAQ section. That might be something the board wants to like really take a look at in the off season, if you will. Like how can we do better in helping people to participate? So
I still think a real good job description, the benefits. What do you get to help decide for your community? And what does that mean? Like, how many times the garbage comes and whether the pothole gets filled, and, those kinds of literal things. And what are the rewards? How are you, emotional, spiritual, as well as financial. I know that the financial reward isn't the reason most people get involved, but I also know that most people that a lot of people in Ward 4 and 5 would an extra whatever $10,000 or whatever it is a big, maybe a big incentive.
Another thing though that a lot of people don't know is we do have a childcare stipend that's included like in the budget every year. We've not had anybody ever take advantage of it, and maybe we need to look at the amount. It's probably
Yeah.
not doesn't make as much of a difference now, but for folks who have other challenges like childcare, that there are things that can be done, and
Yeah.
maybe not at the Board of Elections level, maybe something that you can lobby the council for in the future, but there is a child care stipend for members of the council. The other component I did include in the last edition of the Crier, it might have been, I'm not sure, maybe the June edition, the salary. That's not something that's like ever really talked about, but that was adjusted this year. And the reason the council did that, from what was discussed, was part of helping to bridge that gap, because not everybody has the luxury of the time to give, right? Like it
Yep.
costs in a lot of cases. So those were a couple of things just that we can look at and maybe help come to fruition. Maybe there are other things that would make the job more attainable for everybody. So, and I think the council's open to that. Just based on my observations over the years, it's a really it's a conversation that's important to be had. So, yes, the job descriptions, I think, Sarah, I think you may have already mentioned that to the elected officials, and they seemed very open to that. They really need to design that. They know what they do and what
Yep.
might be important to include. So we can tell them what the charter and code says, but you need to translate that into like, what does that mean in real life?
Could we come up with, here's what the charter and code says your jobs are? And we would love to be able to promote elections and the town of Riverdale Park and your job if we had a good job description. So can you take a look at this and edit it to try to spur that? Because I doubt that they're going to do it on their own. Is that allowable?
Yeah, I mean, that's just simply pulling together the sections of the charter and code that,
Okay.
we've actually looked at quite a bit right now in trying to fill this vacancy. So I don't think that's difficult at all to pull those put them in one place. This is what the charter and code says, but in reality, this
Yeah.
is what it looks like.
Do you think by next month we could, since you are knee deep always in the charter and code, get that together? And then we as a board can vote on whether, presenting, how to present it to the town, the mayor and the town council, and then present it and say, this is what we're asking you to do. Does that seem like?
Well, I was
something
going
we
to
could do?
ask
Yeah.
if the board would consider a
Mhm.
little like recess until the beginning of September. Just we've had a lot of meetings in such a short period of time.
Time
And
off?
I know
No.
it's shocking, but I do staff all the committees and all the other committees
Yes.
too.
Yep.
So
Right.
if we
Fine
could
with
just
me.
try to get caught up on some of the things, like I worked on a lot of minutes, and there's still more to be done. So let's all take
Yep.
a breather if that works for everyone and regroup in September early.
That's fine with me.
Are you good with that?
Any objections to taking August off? No, well, become refreshed. But then maybe in August we can, I
Yeah.
do. It's hard to hold people accountable and hard to hold and also hard to support and thank them if you don't know what their job is. Either way, it's hard to say, yes, you were successful, or no, you weren't, if that job is not clear. And that's why I keep pushing for job descriptions.
No, I think it's very important, and the election judges too. We've worked on putting them together, but there are a lot of little pieces. So maybe when we come back in September, we put together like a work plan on the different things and assign like some research. Each of us could do different things.
Yep.
Staff will start to there's never a slowdown like that. That was sold to me a long time ago that the summertime there was a recess. That doesn't actually ever exist. So the council is continuing. They will meet in August, and then there will be meetings at the end of August. So I call it back to school with the council, because then you hit the ground running with all of the things that need
Yeah.
to be done. And we have to find a way to work our changes, our royal all of your changes into
Mhm.
the charter and code in a more timely fashion. So that delay on getting the candidate filing deadline, I do think played a role, Heather, in our ability to communicate those things to the council. And that was partially my fault in trying to gauge what the town attorney could do and what the council could manage all at one time. And it did, it went fine. It wasn't a problem, but you know, it could have been done sooner. So let's just do a work plan and be ready for the things that need to come. And there's going to be some transition staff wise, just in general. I do have a new role, a new title, and so I do need to bring more staff in to support the Board of Elections. So we will work on that at the same time as the other things that need to be done.
Congratulations on the new title.
Congratulations.
Is it Queen?
Thank you.
It should
Thank
be
you.
Queen.
No.
I think it should be
I'm
Queen.
really excited about it. So I really am, you know, how much I love Riverdale Park. So it's a little hard for me to like transition and give up some of the things that I love so much, but it's important
Yeah.
to the organization, to the town as a whole. There are other people who need to learn these things. So what I'm getting to is that there needs to be more structure, like the things that happen on the staff side. When do they happen? What needs to happen at certain times? And I'll work on that this fall too, just so there's a good framework for you. Okay.
Sounds good.
So
Okay.
when will we meet in September? What is the date for that? I want to be
Mm-hmm.
cognizant.
Yeah.
Is it the third Wednesday that we usually do?
Yes, the 17th is normal, is
Yeah.
the day that my calendar
17th.
says. I put it in to do every third, or the third Thursday. It's the 17th.
Okay, September the 17th. And are you still comfortable meeting via Zoom?
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
a lot easier.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask the council consider that for the committees. Like, it's hard enough to get volunteers
Yeah.
if we can continue.
Yep.
Okay, great. Great. This was
Thank you,
good
everybody.
discussion.
It's nice seeing you all, and have a good summer, and we'll see you when it's cooling down. If the weather holds like it's supposed to, like in the fall, it gets colder. I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay,
it will.
bye.
It will.
Take care,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very
Bye.
much.